and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 houseplanting tools that I think every beginner houseplant parent needs. Things that I wish I had like right away from the start when I started my houseplant parent journey like 5 years ago now. So buckle up and we will get into my like must-have plant tools. But really quick before we do, I just want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. Let's get into these plant tools. So the first thing that I feel like you need is a watering can. I absolutely think a watering can is super useful, especially one with a long spout, because houseplants tend to be a lot smaller than something outside in the garden. You don't want those big ones with the, like the spray spout things, because you kind of want to be getting like really close into the plant and making sure you're getting just in there. You want it to be quite precise, and so a watering can with a nice long accurate spout is super duper important in my opinion. Otherwise you get water everywhere, or you're like me and you still get water everywhere. But if I had something that was less accurate than this, it would just be all over. I'd be flooding my home constantly. So I think a long stemmed watering can is super important. You don't need one that's very big, you don't need one that's very expensive. You can get ones that look quite nice. At the beginning of my collection, I wanted one that I could like put out on a shelf and it would look nice, and I loved having that one. It ended up being too small after I gathered like 200 more plants. So the decorative ones tend to be a bit small. This one is still a bit small, but is perfect for like just doing small bits here and there. I have been going back to this recently rather than using my big spray bottle, just because that's heavy to lug around, and I don't mind if I have to fill this up a few more times. Like if I'm not doing a huge batch water, I tend to use this one, and I really like this one. I should also say that I'm going to link everything here down below in the description, so if you're interested in any of these exact things or things that I recommend specifically, go down below into the description and the link will be there so you can have that. But this one is from Elho. It's made out of recycled plastic, which I freaking love, and it's just under 2 liters, which is good to know exactly how much capacity your watering can has as well, for things like fertilizing and just like knowing how much water you're putting into your plants as well, just like having that knowledge. But it's not like absolutely necessary, and you could just water with like a measuring jug or like a cup or something, but I find it's harder to pour with things like that than one of these, like a dedicated watering can. And I mean, if you're getting into the hobby, you probably want one of these anyway. So highly recommend. You can get them for fairly cheap and they don't need to be huge. This one is perfect for me, so yeah. Next up, I feel like this one's a little bit controversial because some people really hate these and some people really love them. I have had nothing but good experiences with mine. It is a moisture meter. This tool, oh my goodness, it helped me so freaking much at the beginning of my houseplant journey. Essentially what you do is when you're watering, you go around and you put it into the soil of your plant, and it will tell you with this little dial here whether or not the soil is dry, medium, or wet, and that can tell you how you need to water. It's good because it's quite long, so as long as you know your plants aren't freaking huge, which if you're just starting out they might not be that big, but it's great so you can get down to different depths in the soil. So sometimes in my plant videos I recommend watering when the soil is 75% dry, and that usually means that it's dry. The top 3/4 are dry and then the bottom is still like a little bit moist. And so you can go down 75% of the pot with this and see, okay, is it dry or is it wet? Is it time to water or not? I think this really helped me from overwatering my plants, especially at the beginning, because it does the hard work for you. And I know you can use things like your finger and a chopstick, but I find that this like easy device is totally worth it. I'm pretty sure you can get these for like 6 to 10 pounds. They're not expensive, and it is important to remember that they can break. They're not like perfectly accurate, So I know some people have had issues with theirs not working entirely. It's kind of hit or miss. I've never had any problems with mine, so I recommend it very highly. You also want to make sure that you're not just leaving it like sitting in the soil all the time. It's not meant to be like constantly in the thing. It's not supposed to be, okay, you put this in every plant and you can tell how moist it is. No, it's just to go around to your collection and put it in each one and decide whether or not you need to water. I really like these. It's super low tech, and I don't use it as much anymore just because I kind of know at this point my plants a little bit better. But when you're just starting out and you're not as familiar with what your plants are needing, something like this is like a godsend because it can really tell you whether or not you need to be watering. So highly, highly, highly recommend something like this, a moisture meter. The next thing on the list is a dedicated pair of scissors or pruning shears. You're gonna have to cut your plants at some point, whether that is pruning them, taking off old growth, or for propagation. Having a dedicated pair of scissors is really, really important in my opinion. You could just use any old scissors in your home, but the likelihood of them being sharp and clean is less, and it's easier to spread disease and stuff with unclean scissors. Also, you shouldn't be mixing scissors that you're using for food prep for plants, because a lot of houseplants, they do have toxic sap, and like the fluids inside of them are toxic, so it's not ideal to be using those on the same things you're using to cut up your food. But I highly recommend some scissors or pruning shears. They do not need to be expensive, they do not need to be big. I think these were both like cheap and cheerful, nothing crazy, maybe like £5 or something. But a good sharp pair is really important, because especially if you're cutting stems, you want it to be a clean cut. The more ragged the cut, the more places, like the more surface area the plant has to like accept disease and bacteria and all that stuff. So a good sharp clean pair of scissors is something that I find really, really important, and I think y'all will too. I think these are actually technically chef scissors, but I use them solely for plants. I don't use them for anything else. They are just plant scissors for me. The next tool I believe would be super duper useful from quite early on in houseplant collecting, so you can have a better idea of the environment of your home. It is a hygrometer thermometer sort of thing, or just a hygrometer. I have two here. I think these were the ones I originally got. They are cheap and cheerful and just tell you the humidity as well as the temperature, and they change from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Super duper easy. And I think I got these in a multi-pack of like 3 or 5 or something for not very much, probably like £10. Super cheap and cheerful. But I find hygrometers super duper important because it's so good to know the humidity throughout your home, because it'll tell you which plants you can or can't potentially have in those spaces. I'm a big promoter of people buying plants for their space rather than buying plants and figuring out where to put them in your home. So knowing what your relative humidity is in your home can be super helpful before you're buying plants. Obviously, you might not have done that. That is absolutely fine. I definitely didn't do that in the beginning. I just bought plants that looked pretty and like then had to struggle to figure out how the frick I was going to take care of them. But having something like this would be super useful, because then I could see, okay, right now it's 79%, 80% relative humidity in my hands. It's probably because I'm warm, but like, oh gosh, you're going up really high. Maybe I'm covering the humidity sensors with my fingers. But it's good to know, okay, well, if my home is relatively like 50% or lower, maybe tropical houseplants aren't the right thing for me right here, right now, if I don't have anything else, if I can't give them extra humidity through pebble trays or humidifiers or something like that. Or if you're like, oh, my home is freaking humid, have all those tropical plants, but maybe something like cacti and succulents aren't going to do as well in that space because they prefer things to be a bit drier and less humid, and they're going to be more like likely to rot if that's the case. But I think these are like honestly more important than getting something like a humidifier. If you have the budget, I would highly recommend, especially as a newbie, I wish I had had this from like sooner on, a hygrometer that sends data to your phone and can alert you about changes in temperature and humidity. So this one, it's a Govee hygrometer thermometer, and it like has an app that goes with it which literally shows you graphs of your relative humidity and what's going on in your home, and you can set alarms and notifications on it where if the humidity goes above or below a certain amount, it'll alert you to your phone, so you don't need to be like paying attention to it as much as you might need to do with one of these. You can also get, with Govee, little sensors. I'm not gonna get one now because it's buried in there, but you can get sensors that don't even have a screen that you can just dot throughout your house and then have all of those on your phone, like giving you stats and still telling you if things are getting too humid, too hot, too cold, something like that. And it just helps you better understand the environment of your home, which I think is super duper important at the beginning of your houseplanting journey, because that's how you're going to keep your houseplants alive, is understanding your home and what's going on in your home. The last tool that I think is fairly important is kind of a 2-for-1 kind of thing, but it is a spray bottle with a horticultural soap solution inside of it. So spray bottles in general can be super duper helpful. You can get something fancy like this if you want to put it on your shelf, or you can go down to the local like bits and bobs shop and get a 1-pound cheap spray bottle that does the trick absolutely fine. I haven't used this one in ages because I've been using these ones, but they work just as well. Though misting your plants doesn't increase their relative humidity like long term, misting your plants can be quite useful to prevent dust and stuff gathering on them, and if they do get dusty, you can mist them with horticultural soap and wipe their leaves with like a damp cloth or like kitchen roll even. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that because you're gonna go through a lot of kitchen roll if you're using like paper towels, but like a cloth or something, and you can wipe down their leaves with the horticultural soap, which is actually also a natural insecticide that will like do great things for your plants. Like the most basic version of an insecticide, and obviously this isn't gonna be the end all be all for like pest treatments in your home. If you get an infestation or an outbreak of pests, you probably need to look into some other things as well, but as a start, having something like this and keeping your plants clean is going to prevent a lot of pest outbreaks in general. So spray bottle with horticultural soap, so incredibly important, and dusting your plants, it's way more important than I make it. I need to dust like literally all of my plants like right now. So yeah, that is it. Those are my top 5 houseplanting tools that I think every plant parent should have at the beginning of their journey to help them along the way. I will also be doing a part 2 to this video, houseplant tools that I do not think you need to be getting at the beginning of your plant parent journey. It'll probably be my next video up, so keep an eye out for that. I will link them and probably put it in the clickable eye if you want it. Go check that out. But yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanting things you'd like me to talk about in the future. If there's any houseplanting tools that you think are absolutely necessary that I didn't mention, put them down below in the comments, because it's a good wealth of information down there. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!